Monday, we told you about a strange sound echoing for weeks here in Cincinnati. In fact, it is so loud that some people say it's become a quality of life issue for them.
Disaster. That's the word many are using tonight as new developments unfold across the region. After weeks of apparent recovery, conditions that seemed stable have shifted once again. Unexpected moisture has been reported falling from largely clear skies, saturating ground that had only recently begun to dry. Areas believed to be secure are now facing renewed instability. Then came the reports of unusual underground vibrations, not classified as earthquakes, not registered as standard aftershocks. Monitoring systems show no major seismic spikes, yet residents describe a persistent, low-frequency rumble coming from beneath the surface in scattered locations. Wildlife behavior has also drawn attention. Animals returning to familiar habitats have been observed stopping abruptly, changing direction, or abandoning established movement patterns altogether. Biologists are reviewing the footage. Meanwhile, visible markings remain across parts of the landscape, linear impressions and surface irregularities that experts are still assessing. Officials say investigations are ongoing, but no single explanation has yet accounted for the full sequence of events. Authorities maintain that there is no immediate cause for panic. However, the combination of environmental shifts, unexplained vibrations, and behavioral anomalies has raised serious questions. Is this residual activity following the initial disaster, or are these early indicators of deeper structural changes beneath the surface? In this report, we examine what has been confirmed, what remains unexplained, and what experts are saying about the possibility of continued instability. Stay with us as we break down the facts and what they could mean moving forward. Across the range still bearing scars from devastation, beneath atmospheres expected to be brightening, precipitation commenced descending. This wasn't the forecasted moisture needed for ecological restoration, nor the gentle downpours designed to revitalize damaged ecosystems, but sporadic displaced water droplets plummeting through unclouded azure expanse, contacting dirt that had scarcely initiated its drying cycle. Neighborhoods that had weathered flooding and tempest remained hushed, yet wetness persisted in returning regardless, initially subtle, then recurring continuously, as though the climatic system itself had disregarded every signal to transition onward. The troubling aspect wasn't the volume of precipitation, but rather its placement in time. It materialized after evacuation orders had been rescinded, after reconstruction initiatives had launched, after the collective narrative had pivoted from catastrophe toward rehabilitation. Agricultural fields had received fresh plantings, structural foundations had been reestablished, and still the moisture arrived misaligned with every expectation, disrupting momentum meant to propel everyone forward. Pools accumulated where firmness was anticipated. Recently spread earth grew, saturated again. Advancement decelerated, not through forceful opposition, but through relentless persistence. No weather formations loomed overhead. No ominous fronts approached the horizon. Meteorological charts displayed nothing concerning. Emergency broadcast systems stayed dormant, yet observers consistently reported identical characteristics. The rainfall manifested without identifiable origin and without discernible rhythm. It never announced its arrival. It never intensified into pandemonium. It merely persisted in returning silently, as though the terrain hadn't completed its reaction to preceding events. Therefore, the inquiry transforms. It's no longer simply about why moisture keeps falling. The far more disturbing consideration is whether this precipitation represents merely atmospheric aberration or functions as communication that restoration hasn't reached its final stage. And if it operates as communication, have we equipped ourselves to interpret it correctly? While metropolitan areas wrestle with comprehending this unseasonable moisture, another disruption began manifesting far from the initial oddity, one that didn't descend from above, but ascended from the depths, considerably beyond when the terrain had stabilized and seismological devices confirmed equilibrium. This profound reverberating tone began surfacing from beneath the landscape. It wasn't piercing or aggressive, but bass-heavy and continuous, transmitting across barren expanses and silent evenings, as though the planet itself were producing delayed acknowledgement to what had already transpired. The acoustic phenomenon arrived without physical trembling. No fissures were developing. No buildings were crumbling. No warning systems activated. Yet those who encountered described remarkably similar sensations. A gradual pulsating drone that appeared to propagate rather than bounce, traveling through sediment and bedrock instead of atmosphere. Throughout arid regions, isolated lowlands, and thinly inhabited territories, the noise surfaced momentarily, dissipated, then resurfaced, never amplified sufficiently to warrant displacement, yet consistent enough to defy easy dismissal. Researchers pursue conventional explanations. No geological fault activity, no industrial boring procedures, no subterranean detonations. Monitoring devices registered nothing correlating with the span or origin depth of the acoustic signature. Nevertheless, the Earth demonstrated peculiar characteristics during its presence. Precision instruments revealed minor electromagnetic variations. Creatures demonstrated awareness preceding human detection, raising their attention, withdrawing, or becoming immobilized as a vibration traversed beneath their position. Consequently, the examination intensifies. It's no longer exclusively about why atmospheric conditions behaved irregularly. The more unsettling consideration becomes why, after the Earth had achieved stillness, did it commence communicating once more? And if this acoustic phenomenon isn't coincidental, but rather a deliberately postponed reaction, are we paying sufficient attention to comprehend its message? For a country that frequently identifies itself as spiritually grounded, there exists a subtle inconsistency lingering just below awareness. Conclusions arrive effortlessly. Interpretations materialize rapidly. Classifications get assigned before contemplation has opportunity to develop. Yet the teachings most commonly referenced are seldom recalled completely. That differentiation holds significance here, because when phenomena emerge that disturb our sense of security, then what materializes afterward might not arrive to condemn, but to mirror back our reality. For those versed in sacred texts, the parallels felt impossible to disregard. Ancient writings describe precipitation arriving not as blessing but as marker, calibrated not to nourish but to challenge. Within these passages, moisture transcends mere meteorology. It becomes measurement, calculated disruption designed to reveal misguided certainty and incomplete resolution. Precipitation descending contrary to recovery's expectations carries distinct meaning. Recovery implies finality, settlement, authority. Misplaced moisture implies postponement, examination, unresolved matters. When reconstruction encounters opposition from the heavens themselves, it resembles less like happenstance and more like intermission imposed from beyond human orchestration. A notification that restoration cannot be proclaimed merely because destruction has concluded. Regarding the disturbing acoustic signature, the symbolism bore even greater significance. Ancient texts frequently address the Earth reacting not exclusively during crisis, but afterward, when forewarning or judgment has already been delivered. The trembling doesn't invariably accompany devastation. Sometimes it materializes as a reminder extending well beyond when the surface presents tranquility. Sound ascending from quieted terrain carries distinct symbolism. Silence implies completion, settlement, protection. A drone beneath that silence implies continuing motion, something contained, calibrated, and purposeful. It doesn't accelerate. It doesn't justify itself. It merely establishes its existence, as though signaling that surface-level calm doesn't equate to subsurface dormancy. Before we proceed further, if these disturbances connect with your own observations, would you consider sharing your comparable encounters or referencing these occurrences in the comments below? Throughout subsequent days following profound resonant vibrations ascending from underground, another transformation discreetly materialized topside. Locations where minor fractures had separated during preceding disturbances began sealing themselves. Separations contracted, earth compressed. From distance, it resembled a landscape performing self-repair, executing what planetary surfaces typically accomplish after experiencing pressure. But upon closer examination, something remained incorrect. The terrain didn't revert to its previous condition. As the ruptures closed, delicate impressions persisted embedded into the surface, perfectly linear, unbroken, and strangely exact. They didn't disperse or diminish like organic weathering. They extended with purposefulness, generating understated configurations throughout dirt and mineral deposits, as though the Earth had mended under restriction, preserving documentation the force had absorbed. Construction specialists and land assessors discovered zero structural justification for the impressions, no infrastructure conduits beneath, no geological fracture traces corresponding to their trajectory. The soil makeup tested conventionally normal, yet the impressions endured, manifesting most distinctly in locations where the subterranean drone had been documented days previously, as though the acoustic phenomenon and the impressions comprised components of identical progression. Motion beneath, documentation above. Within sacred writings, the Earth isn't characterized as inactive. It reacts, retains memory, and provides testimony. Ancient passages reference the landscape staggering like temporary shelter, overwhelmed by what has traversed over it. Restoration doesn't invariably signify elimination. Sometimes it signifies confinement, force absorbed, motion restricted. repercussions maintained in position rather than discharged. Terrain that seals yet doesn't erase carries distinct symbolism. Restoration implies renewal. Residual marks imply caution. Combined, they suggest that whatever transpired beneath the surface wasn't intended to stay completely concealed, nor completely exposed. The landscape recovered, but not without preserving proof that something had moved through it. If the profound drone was the earth vocalizing from below, then these impressions represent what persisted after it subsided into silence again. Not destruction severe enough to trigger alarm, not indicators dramatic enough to command focus, but precise enough to resist rational explanation. Therefore, the inquiry sharpens once more. If the terrain can restore itself while simultaneously preserving memory, what precisely traversed through it? And if these residual marks aren't wounds, but rather coordinates, are they indicating something concluded or something still restrained, lingering beneath the surface, awaiting its subsequent opportunity to react? When the terrain subsided into quietness again, wildlife gradually reappeared, but not matching anyone's expectations. Creatures began re-emerging in zones they deserted during preceding disturbances. Avian species resettled onto utility cables. Hoofed mammals ventured tentatively from forest concealment. Domesticated livestock were reintroduced onto land that had already received safety clearance. Initially, it resembled evidence of recuperation, the organic hierarchy reestablishing itself. But something felt misaligned. The creatures didn't navigate with recognition. They paused where they'd previously transited freely. They circumvented clear pathways they traversed for years. Some remained motionless for extended durations, watchful yet not frightened, as though detecting something just beyond auditory range. Others altered trajectory unexpectedly, retreating from terrain displaying zero observable danger. The landscape presented tranquility. The behavior contradicted it. What disturbed witnesses primarily was the uniformity. Diverse species across separate territories reacted in comparable manners. Reluctance without terror, evasion without justification. There were no threats in proximity, no tempests advancing, no seismological activity documented. Yet survival instinct, which typically broadcasts safety considerably before human awareness perceives it, appeared to be withholding authorization. Agricultural workers observed creatures refusing hydration from customary sources. Motion-activated surveillance captured nocturnal species, maintaining unusual stillness. Vision concentrated on vacant space. Even avian life, the earliest to reclaim disrupted territory, modified their aerial routes, circling excessively before descending or declining to descend whatsoever. Within Scripture, creatures are frequently portrayed as initial responders before humanity achieves consciousness. Ancient wisdom instructs, consult the creatures and they will educate you. Address the earth and it will educate you. Creation perceives transformations that language and instruments cannot yet articulate. Their conduct isn't intellectual reasoning. It's instinctual recognition. Creatures returning without resuming their established patterns carries distinct significance. Return implies security. Reluctance implies alert. Combined, they suggest that while hazard might no longer be observable, something hasn't yet departed. The surface might present quietness, but survival instinct suggests continued vigilance. If the profound acoustic signature beneath the earth indicated motion below, and the peculiar impressions across the landscape documented what transpired afterward, then these modified behaviors might constitute the concluding indicator in progression, not evidence of alarm, but of prudence, a living intermission. Therefore, the inquiry transforms yet again. If even survival instinct hesitates where rational analysis perceives zero danger, what's being detected but not yet disclosed, and the creation itself is decelerating, observing, and maintaining vigilance, shouldn't we be mirroring that response? Consider the historical pattern, where 10 distinct groups were ultimately displaced from their homeland during that period. They received forewarning that when these communities abandoned their spiritual foundation and disregarded divine instruction,